Hermitage, Sapiencia, et linguaeus noveturio dicim, Deus in correpsis, non alignantibus, neque laberis, pacientes in iniquitatem. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Os justi meditabitur sapientiam, et linguaeus noveturio dicim, Lex Deus in correpsis. In Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Intro ego ad altare Dei. Iudicame Deus et discerne causa meum de gente non sancta, abomine iniquo et doloso eruene.
Quietus Deus, fortitude mea, quam miraculis Dei quadricis in cedo, dum frigiit meum meus.
Imite lucem tuam et veritatem tuam, ipsa me deduxerunt et adduxerunt in montem sanctum tuum et in tabernacula tua.
Et in tui voluntate Dei, ad Deum glorificatio ventutum meum.
Confitebor tibi incitera Deus, Deus meus, quare tristis es anima mea et quare conturbas me.
Spurn Deo, anima tu confitebili, saltare fructus mei, Deus meus.
Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto.
Sic erat in principio, nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Intro ego ad altare Dei.
Ad Deum glorificatio ventutum meum.
Adiutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
Proficiat caelum et terram.
Confitior Deo omnipotenti, Beati Maria semper Virgine, Beatum Michaeli Arcangelo, Beatum Ioannis Baptisti, Sanctis Apostolis Petro et Paolo, omnibus sanctus, et vobis Pater, quia peccani dimis, cogitatione, verbo et opere. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. Ilio precor Beatam Mariam semper Virginem, Beatum Michaelem Archangelum, Beatum Ioannem Baptistam, Sanctus Apostolos Petrum et Paolo, omnes sanctus, et vos fratres, orate pro me ad Dominum Deum nostrum.
Miserere tu intens Deus, et missis peccatis tuis, purgate vitam aeternam.
Amen.
Confitur Deo omnipotenti, Beata Maria semper Virgine, Beata Michaeli Arcangelo, Beata Ioannis Baptisti, Sanctis Apostolis Petro et Paolo, omnibus sanctus, et tebi Pater, qui peccavi nimis cogitatione, verbo et opera. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, Dio preco Beata Maria semper Virgine, Beata Michaelem Archangelum, Beata Ioannem Baptistum, Sanctus Apostolis Petrum et Paulum, omnes sanctus, et te Pater, ora pro me Dominum Deum nostrum.
Misereatur vestri omnipotens Deus, et dimissis peccatis vestris, perducat vos ad vitam aeternam.
Amen.
Indulgentiam, absolutionem, et remissionem peccatorum nostrorum, tribuat nobis omnipotens et misericordias Dominus.
Amen.
Deus tu conversus pedete capis nos,
Et plebs tuli tabitur in te,
ostende nobis Domine misericordiam tuam,
et salutare tuum de nobis,
Domine exaudi orationem meam,
et clama meis ut definiat,
Dominus vobiscum.
et cum spiritu tuo.
Oremus. os justi meditabitur sapientiam, et lunga eius loquetur judicium, exte eius in corde ipsius, noli emulari in malignantibus, equite laberis facientes iniquitatis. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancti, sic ut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Os justi meditabitur sapientiam, et lunga eius loquetur judicium, exte eius in corde ipsius. Et in terra pans hominibus bone voluntatis benedicimus te, glorificamus te, gratias audimus tibi, Antemonium gloriam tuum, Domine Deus ex celestis, Deus Pater omnipotens, Domine Deus agnus Dei, Filius Patris, Vitoris peccata mundi, miserere nobis, qui tollis peccata mundi, suscipe deprecationem nostram, miseris adisteram Patris, miserere nobis, coniam tu solus sanctus, tu solus sanctissimulus, Iesu Christe, cum Sanctus Spiritu, in gloria Dei Patris. Amen. Dominus vobiscum, oremus. Sancti Brunonis confessoris tui, que sumus Domine intercessione adiuvemur, ut qui maestatem tuam graviter delinquendo offendimus, eius meritis et precibus nostrorum delictorum veniam consequamur, per Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium tuum, qui te convivit et regnat in unitate Spiritus Sancti Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Lectio Libri Sapientiae. Beatus ver, qui inventus est sine macula, et qui post aurum non habit, nec speravit in pecunia et thesauris. Quis est hic et laudabemus eum, fecit enim mirabilia in vita sua, qui probatus est in illo, et perfectus est, erit in gloria aeterna, qui potuit transgredi, et non est transgressus, facere mala et non fecit. Ideo stabilitas sunt bona Elius in Domino, et elemus in Asenius, in narrabit omnis ecclesia sanctorum. A reading from the book of Sirach. Happy the man, found without fault, who turns not aside after gain. Who is he, that we may praise him? He, of all his kindred, has done wonders. For he has been tested by gold, and come off safe, and this remains his glory. He could have sinned, but did not, could have done evil, but would not, so that his possessions are secure in the Lord, and the assembly recounts his praises. Sut fama florendi, sicut cedrus Libani. Multiplicabitur in domo Domini. Ad annunciandum misericordiam tuum, et veritatem tuum, Alleluia, Alleluia, Beatus vir, qui suffert tentationem, quoniam comprobatus fuerit,
facipiet coronam vitae. Dominus vobiscum. Sequentia Sancti Evangelii secundum Lucam. In illo tempore dixi Jesus discipulis suis, simplum vivestre precinti, et lucerne ardentes in manibus vesti, et possimiles hominibus expectantibus Dominum sum, quando relatatur a nuptiis, et cum venerit et cum saverit confestim aperiandem. Beati servilli quos cum venerit Dominus in venere vigilantes, amendico vobis, quod precinget se, et facet illos discundere, et transiens ministravit ieris, et si venerit in secunda vigilia, et si in tertia vigilia venerit, et ita in venerit, beati sunt servilli, o catem scitote, quoniam si sciret pater familias, qua ora fur veniret, vigilaret utique, et non sineret per fodidumum suam, et vos estate parati, qua hora non putatis, filius hominis veniet. The Gospel is taken from St. Luke. At that time, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let your belts be fastened round your waists and your lamps burning ready. Be like men awaiting their master's return from a wedding, so that you open up for him as soon as he comes and knocks. Happy for those servants whom the master finds vigilant on his arrival. I tell you, he will fasten his belt, seat them at table, and come and wait on them. Even if he comes at midnight or before sunrise and finds them prepared, it will be happy for them. Bear in mind, if the head of the house had known at what time the thief was coming, he would certainly not have let him break into his house. You too should be vigilant, because the Son of Man comes at a time you least expect." He could have sinned but did not, could have done evil but would not, says the first reading. And the Gospel has to do with the night watch. One day there was in one of the cities of Europe a young man who was enjoying life, but that was done without any point of reference. He was enjoying his own life under his own terms, and God did not enter into the equation. He was getting into bed after a night of pleasure, and something hit him. A sound which probably he'd heard many times before, but which had not had the same effect ever. He heard the church bell of a Carthusian monastery ringing out loud and clear, calling the fathers to the night office. And the thought came to him, when it's all over, what will it have served? These people are using the night properly. What am I doing with my time? Eventually, he knocked on the door of that monastery and entered, and persevered until death. A death which, in the case of the Carthusian, is very hidden, for there is no name on the cross, a simple black cross under which lies the body of a soul as forgotten in death as he was in life. One day we were discussing who was where in the graveyard at Selignac. The fathers knew that's Don Hugues and so on, that one there, but it was a local and family tradition. Also, other things would be part of the family tradition. And the old orders have a long family history. Indeed, Selignac was the first of the Carthusians' monastery to be reopened after the anti-clerical wave which threw out practically all the religious from France. It was already in about 1926 that Providence, through a good woman who had bought the property, made it available to the order again, way before the Grand Chartreuse came back, taking advantage of the war in 1944 to come in. And so, what happened in that particular house was somewhat special. There had been, before the expulsions, a certain openness to doing certain things like receiving people on retreat. It was all to stop. The early superiors were very holy men. Don Mort du Camin was a holy man, and he meant business. No one would make a retreat. It would be back to the true Carthusian virginity and separation from the world. And that had carried on. Remember that when one enters one of these completely cloistered monasteries, one is in a situation of complete isolation from what may contaminate from the outside. And one is being formed by people who have been formed by saints and have handed it on. Our novice master had entered in 1936, therefore close to the foundation, the refoundation, and had had the formation of Don Mort. And he was not alone. They all meant business when they went in there. He was in formation with two others of note. One was Don Martin, who entered at the age of 17. One of those who stands out in Carthusian history. It happens rarely, but he had it after he died. The Laudabilitas Vixit, it's the internal beatification. He eventually became prior. When I arrived, he was no longer prior, but he was very much alive and well. Out of humility and interiority, he pleaded not to be prior, and he was allowed to go to the nuns as their chaplain, the Carthusian nuns. He, I knew from the brethren, was, and it was called, un saint non canonisé, a saint not canonized. And I heard on the grapevine that everything that he would do perfectly. And when he was at the altar, you could see in his expression something angelic. He was in amorous contact with the one he was consecrating, and you could see it. But he didn't talk, hardly ever. And this was, of course, a slight problem when it came to his being superior. But he was coherent, and he knew why he did not wish to waste energy on what was not necessary. And when it came to his death, he knew the day he was going to die and the hour. No one else did, because he was in good health. He was only about 67, and he was with the nuns, and the Mother Superior, the prioress, found this letter beside him. I know that the Lord is coming for me. I leave you this testimony. This last will and testament, it was what summed up his whole life, which he wanted to transmit. The secret of the interior life is holy silence. Le silence, le saint silence est le secret de la vie intérieure. Another information with Don Simeon, our novice master, was Don Damien. He had actually been a missionary. He even knew how to fly an aeroplane. About 12 years. And he'd felt the call to a completely secluded life, just the vertical hold. He entered Selignac. He was a man able, therefore, to act on the horizontal because he had experience of life. So, after 12 years, they asked him if he would be procurator. That means the one who makes the bridge between the cloister and the world. Not in that house, but in another house, actually in Florence. So off he went with himself in obedience, but getting there, before he was put in the procurator's cell, he, with some insistence, asked if he could have another option. Could he become a recluse at nearby Camaldoli? And with some grunting noises, he was allowed to go. And he was the last to persevere at Camaldoli until death in reclusion. He died, I think, in 1960, and I have prayed by his grave. It says simply on it, recluso. At that time he'd been given in the Camaldolese the religious name of Jerome, Girolamo. Our own novice master was a man of great human goodness, and in that he was a reflection of St. Bruno, who had this exclamation which he would repeat, St. Bruno himself, O Bonitas, O goodness. And he attracted as a magnet. Indeed, when he died, it was written of him that his face was always in feast, semper festo vultu. His face was always beaming with joy, and this was the magnetism of his character, which reflected the goodness of the Sacred Heart, and of course worked. However, St. Bruno was rich in many qualities, including the fact that he was a brain. He had been Chancellor of the Cathedral School of Reims. He probably would have become Archbishop of Reims because there was a big noise when Manasses was through simony, that's when they pay for it, became bishop or archbishop, and of course Bruno wasn't happy about it. There was a big noise. He got out of the whole explosion and avoided becoming a bishop by becoming a hermit. He was helped by another saint, but that's another story. And he eventually built this monastery way from humanity on the mountains of La Grande Chartreuse. But it didn't finish there. One of his disciples in Reims became Pope, Urban II, and he knew his quality. Come this way. I have need of you in Rome. Obedience took him out, therefore, of his own foundation, and his brethren were dismayed. And in a fit of the spiritual mega blues, they were leaving, and Our Lady appeared. Stay there. Bruno, by then, was in Rome, but again the pull of the cloister was there, and with permission he was allowed to retire once again to another solitary place, way down in the south of Italy, in Calabria, where they built the present Sierra San Bruno, where he died in 1101. He was born in 1035. And there he's very much venerated by the local people. On this very day, all the babies of the area, all the children of the area, become blessed with the relic of his by the prior, Don Jacques, a Frenchman who is the brother of the Abbot of Solesmes, as it happens. I presume he's still there, the Abbot of Solesmes. Don Jacques is still there, certainly. And the order continued, with this uniqueness that it never ever needed reform. Indeed, it is said, Carthusia numquam reformata, the Carthusian house, the charter house, never reformed, quia numquam deformata, because never deformed. And the mechanism which kept it was the visitation, every 2 years, and then the general chapter. A very centralized order, and very careful about what happened and what didn't happen. Indeed, they had and still have their own liturgy, very contemplative, with ancient gestures such as prostrations going on, the noseward position after the consecration, and so on. And thanksgiving and preparation made in that same noseward position, which is very fitting for a contemplative. The canon in silence and utter aloneness with God in the solitary celebration of the morning, because they didn't go in big time for concelebration. Intimacy with God. And all the offices celebrated alone, except midnight office and vespers. But in such a way that if you look at them from the air, they're all doing the same thing and look as though they're in a huge virtual choir, because each gesture is exactly the same in the little oratory that they have. So they're getting up and going down at the same time and doing exactly the same things as each other. So it's a virtual choir. However, they do have the chant, and that is what differentiates them from the parallel camaldolese, who have the solitude but not the chant. And the reason is that they took what they had with them. Remember, Bruno had been a canon of the cathedral. Well, there were 7 of them in the foundation, and 2 of them were canons of Saint-Ruf. So they took the chant of Saint-Ruf, which is still there, and one of them, Hugh, was a priest, and he was called the chaplain. So the office of the Carthusians goes back unchanged to that period, and therefore it's different from the Gregorian. And it's actually far more muscular, because they don't have the twiddly bits. It goes whoop and then down with big jumps, and you can hear all the thrust as though it were a big cathedral, pure in its thrust and not in any way diluted. With regard to what they do, it is actually difficult to justify because they don't do anything. But it can be justified if one understands how the mystical body works. It's the weak helping, or rather helped by the strong, in such a way that on the mystical level, virtual presence has a greater impact there where it counts. It's been compared to a powerhouse. Even the Pope himself, the Pope of the Missions, Pius XI, who, remember, made Therese of Lisieux one of the patrons of the missions, he actually gave them a theology in Umbratilem and emphasized that they had to be what they were, because the church was depending on them so as to draw down the blessings which others then applied on the mission fields. And that is precisely where I want to finish. The Lord has always blessed the order because it always took seriously this invisible and gratuitous element. Certain things do not need to be justified by men or to have any apologetics. If we believe in God, we believe that He is enough, and that as He has an invisible choir in heaven of angels doing nothing but adoring, so too on earth He has a choir of souls who do nothing but praising and worshipping, and to do that purely, they do not need all the clutter of human noise and complication. Dominus vobiscum, oremus. Veritas me, et misericordia mea, cum ipso, et in nomine meo, exaltam in coro Orate, frater, Patrum omnipotente.
Resuscitate Dominus sacrificium demandus tuis, et iadmet gloriam nominis tui, agititatem quoque nostrum, totus quae ecclesias tui sancti.
Per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
Dominus vobiscum. Sursum corona. Gratias agamus a Domino Deo nostro. Meredinium et justum est cum et salutare. Nos tibi semper et ubique gratias ager. Domine Sancte Pater omnipotens eterne Deus, per Christum Dominum nostrum. Per quem maestatem tuam laudant angeli, adonant dominationes, tremunt potestates. Celi celorumque virtutes adpeata seraphim, socia exultatione concelebrant. Cum quibus et nostras voces ut admittibias te precamur, supplici confessione dicentes. Sanctus, 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 Dominus Deus Sabaoth, pleni sunt celi et terra, gloria tua, Hosanna in excelsis, benedictus qui venit in nomine Domini, Hosanna in excelsis. nobis cuque peccatoribus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Oremus, precepti salutaribus moniti, et divina institutione formati, audemus dicere. Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimite nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem,
sed libera nos a malo.
per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
Pax Domini sit semper vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona nobis pacem. Domine non sum dignus. Domine non sum dignus. Domine non sum dignus. ecce agnus Dei, ecce qui tollit peccata mundi. Domine, non sum dignus, ut intres sub tectum meum, se tantum dic verbo, et sanabitur anima mea. Domine, non sum dignus, ut intres sub tectum meum, se tantum dic verbo, et sanabitur anima mea. Domine, non sum dignus, ut intres sub tectum meum, se tantum dic verbo, et sanabitur anima mea. Beatus servus, quem convenerit Dominus, in venerit vigilantem. Amen, dico vobis, super omnia bona sua, constituet eum. vobiscum. Oremus. Quae sumus omnipotens Deus, ut qui celesti alimenta percepimus, intercedente beato Brunone confessore tu, perege contra omnia adversa muniamur, per Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum filium tuum, qui te convivit et regnum in unitate Spiritus Sancti, Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Ite missa est Deo gratias. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus.
Amen.
Dominus vobiscum. Initium Sancti Evangelii secundum Ioannem. In principio erat verbum, et verbum erat apud Deum, et Deus erat verbum. Hoc erat in principio apud Deum, omnia per ipsum facta sunt, in ipso factum est nihil quod factum est. In ipso vita erat, et vita erat lux hominum, lux in tenebris lucet, et in eam non comprehenderunt. Ut homo visus ad Deo, cui nomen erat Ioannes, hic vel testimonium, ut testimonium peribere de lumine, ut homines credent per illum. Non erat ille lux, sed testimonium peribere de lumine. Erat lux vera, qui illuminat omne hominem venientem in mundum. In mundo erat, et mundus per ipsum factus est, et mundus eum non cognovit. In propria venit, et sui eum non receperunt. Quod datum receperunt eum, del Deis potestatem filius Dei fieri. Is, scripti nomine eus, rex sanguinibus, ex voltate carnis, ex voltate viri, sed ex Deo nati sunt. Et verbum caro factum est, et habitavit in nobis, et vidimus gloria meus, gloria quasi unigentia Patre, plenum gratiae et veritatis.
Deo gratias.
Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, et spes nostra salve. A te clamamus, exules filii Eve, a te suspiramus, gementes et flentes, in ac lacrimarum valle. Ea ergo advocata nostra, illos tuos misericordes oculos ad nos converte. Et Iesum benedictum fructum ventris tui, nobis post hoc exilium ostende. O clemens